Jesus said, "Lucky is the lion that the human will eat, so that the lion becomes human, and foul is the human that the lion will eat, and the lion still will become human." Gospel of Thomas, saying 7. Is this really something that Jesus would have said? In this video, I'm going to show you that it is something that Jesus would have said, and I'm going to show you what it really means. To understand what Jesus is saying, we need to look at this idea of a lion and a human. If we put a lion and a human next to each other, what comes to mind? If you look at the human, you see someone that is reasonable, someone with good manners, someone with compassion, someone that lives by a certain set of rules. If we look at the lion, we see something different. We see something that is dangerous, violent. We see something with aggression. We see something that's focused on carnal desires. Now, the lion symbolizes our wild side, this part of us. And Christianity wants to teach us that we should have nothing to do with this lion. It's also something that comes out in Gnosticism. So if you look at Thomas saying 7, it sounds a bit strange, and then people will say it's something too strange that Jesus would have said, so it must be Gnostic. The Gospel of Thomas is not Gnostic. Gnosticism is all about dualism. It's about the material world is bad, your body is bad, you should have nothing to do with it. You should only focus on the spiritual. You should try and get away from the physical. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus teaches us the exact opposite. We find this recurring theme in the Gospel of Thomas where the two must become one, and that also means the spiritual and the physical. In Thomas, it's all about being whole, being undivided. Now, in this saying, Jesus is saying this wild side of us, we need to embrace that as part of who God made us. God made us with aggression, with the ability to fight for survival. He made us with desires. We need to understand that that is how God made us. But it comes with a warning. Lucky is the lion that the human will eat, so that the lion becomes human. So when the human eats the lion, then the human is in control. The two becomes one. But when the lion eats the human, that means your desires is in control. Your aggression is in control. Then you will still be a human when the lion eats the human, but you will be a foul human being. We need to be in control. Now, if you think this is a bit strange, you're not sure if this is something that Jesus said, let's think about that for a moment. So the human eating the lion is not out of character of Jesus. It's actually right up his alley. A human eating a lion sounds strange, but so does eating the body of Jesus. But it is something that he said. So this is something that Jesus would have said. The idea of making the two opposites one, we find that even in the canonical Gospels. In the Gospel of Matthew we read, "I am sending you out like sheep into the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves." A dove, something beautiful, something innocent. We need to have love. We need to help other people and just be good children of God. But Jesus is telling us, don't be all dove. If you think about a serpent, for the Jewish audience Jesus was talking to, if you look at the Hebrew Bible, the serpent is almost something evil. So Jesus is telling them, don't be all dove. You must have this other part of you, this serpent, that is part of who you are. It is important that we need to be in control. A good example will be turn the other cheek. That is something that Jesus taught us. What does that mean? When you get a slap on the cheek, you should not fight. You don't fight when you are offended. You don't fight to protect your pride or your honor. You fight when it's necessary for survival, when you need to protect the lives of your loved ones. That's when you need to fight. So Jesus is telling us to have constraint, to have this line as part of us, but it must be under control. Jordan Peterson, now, I, I don't really like Jordan Peterson. There's a lot of things he says that I don't agree with. But the one thing he said that I do like is, he said, a harmless man is not a good man, but a dangerous man that has it under control is a good man. And that's basically what this saying is about. It's about embracing this wild side of yours, but having it under control. Now, again, you might think, but okay, so yes, Jesus did sometimes use this shocking imagery to wake people up, but was Jesus really, wasn't Jesus a pacifist? And the answer is no, he wasn't. Jesus wasn't all dove. Jesus told us he did not come to bring peace. He told us he came to bring the sword and war. He even told his followers to go and sell their clothes to buy a sword. Now, Christians will say, but yes, that Jesus meant that spiritually. It did not mean we should actually go and buy a weapon. And didn't Jesus say, those who live by the sword will die by the sword? No, Jesus did not say that. Let's have a look at what he said. It's in Matthew 26, verse 52. Then Jesus said to him, put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will die by the sword. We need to see that in context. Just a couple of verses earlier, in verse 47, we read that a large crowd was approaching Jesus with swords and clubs. So the 12 disciples was there with Jesus, and a large crowd were approaching them with swords. So they were completely outnumbered. Jesus said to them, put back your sword into its place, because if you take out your sword in this situation, you are going to die by the sword. Jesus was teaching restraint, was teaching us to think clearly and make decisions, not based on just our aggression. Again, the human should always be in control. But here's the thing. Jesus told them, put back the sword in its place. With other words, some of the followers of Jesus were carrying weapons. It wasn't symbolic weapons. Jesus did not tell them, put back your spiritual swords into its place. They were in an actual confrontation, and Jesus told them to put back their swords. So at least some of the close followers of Jesus were armed. Now, to get back to the idea of Jesus telling us to go and buy a sword, I believe it's clear that Jesus meant that literally. You should arm yourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone, all Christians, should go and purchase firearms. Today we have a lot more options. In those days, they couldn't dial 911. And the Roman soldiers that were there to keep the peace, but not to protect the innocent. So they didn't have a lot of options. Today we have a lot more options. So that doesn't mean everybody needs to purchase a firearm. But it does mean that you shouldn't be all dove. You shouldn't walk around and say, no, God will protect me. Yes, you can believe that God will protect you, but you need to do your part. God told you what to do. You need to be like a serpent. You need to be careful in this world. You can't just be a dove and believe that God will protect you while he warned you to take action. It's not just about self-defense. It can be how you operate your business. Be a good human being and have good moral values. But sometimes you also need to fight for your survival, for the survival of your business. So you can't always just be the nice guy. Another good example will be, I like Bart Ehrman. I've read most of his books. And when you do read his books, you'll see he's really a good human being. When you watch his videos, he's such a nice person. But you don't want to be on the opposite side of a debate with him. You see, it's about being a good person, being a dove, but also being like a serpent. We have this side of us this side that's willing to fight for when it's necessary, that we must embrace, but it needs to be under control. Yes, Jesus did say turn the other cheek, but it doesn't mean we are called to be doormats. Turning the other cheek is about choosing restraint. It's a posture of strength and not weakness. You can be peaceful without being passive. You can be loving without being walked over. Jesus wasn't calling us to deny our wild side, he was calling us to master it. Thank you for watching.